an 18-year-old boy, Joshua Maddox, disappears, only to be found dead 7 years later, just blocks from his home. What really happened to Joshua? Was it an accident or something more sinister? If you love all things true crime, then subscribe to True Crime Inspector for daily disturbing content. Now let's dive into this case and uncover the truth. Joshua Maddox, born on March 9, 1990, spent his early years in Woodland Park, Colorado, in the company of his father Michael, brother Zachary, and sisters Ruth and Kate. Initially homeschooled, Joshua later joined Woodland Park High School, showcasing his gifted intellect and creativity. He was not just a bright student, but also an artist, a writer, and a guitarist with a deep passion for music. Known for his excellent academic performance and a sharp sense of humor, Joshua was well-liked and had a wide circle of close friends. Tragedy struck Joshua Maddox's family in 2006 when his brother tragically ended his own life, leaving Joshua and his family in profound grief. 2 years after this heartbreaking event, on May 8th, Joshua, a known nature enthusiast, casually mentioned to his sister Kate that he was going for a walk. Unbeknownst to anyone, this would be the last time Joshua would be seen. His affinity for the outdoors meant that solo walks were common for him, but as time went on without his return, concern grew. After an unsettling 5 days with no sign of Joshua, his family, gripped by worry, reported his disappearance to the police. On May 13th, filled with concern, Joshua's father contacted the police to report his son missing. The local community rallied together, searching extensively for Joshua in the days, weeks, and months that followed, scouring the nearby park and surrounding areas. Despite their dedicated efforts, Joshua remained unaccounted for, his whereabouts a mystery. Joshua Maddox was the kind of person nobody expected to be in danger. He had graduated high school with good grades, was popular among his friends, and was known for staying out of trouble. He appeared to be doing well and was happy around the time he disappeared. The police, lacking any signs of foul play, filed a missing person report under his name, but the investigation eventually hit a dead end. Joshua's father, Mike, kept their family home in the hope that if Joshua ever decided to return, he would know exactly where to find his family. However, years passed with no word from Joshua, and the case went cold. Then, on August 12, 2015, at about 2:30 p.m., a startling discovery was made at a property on Meadowlark Lane in Woodland Park, Colorado. The police were called to the site of an old cabin being demolished by Murphy Constructors, a company owned by 79-year-old Murphy. The demolition was part of a new wilderness development project to build 32 single-family homes. During the cabin's demolition, Murphy's crew made a grim discovery. They uncovered human remains inside the chimney as they removed the chimney's steel casing. The body was found in a fetal position, about a meter off the ground. Murphy described the body's knees as being above its head and the legs dislocated, indicating it had been there for a considerable time. One hand was covering the face. Notably, the body was only dressed in a thermal shirt, with no clothing from the waist down. The cabin where the shocking discovery was made held a rich history, belonging to the Murphy family. Purchased by Chuck Murphy's parents, it was initially part of the Thunderhead Ranch in Woodland Park. In its early days, the ranch was known for its lively atmosphere, hosting legal gambling and parties. After this period of excitement had passed, the property came into the hands of Murphy's parents. It became a homestead where Murphy's brother resided for over 3 decades. Following his tenure in the cabin, the property transitioned into a rental space. This phase continued for a while until the cabin was left vacant, standing unused for about 10 years before the grim discovery was made. The cabin, sporadically checked by Chuck Murphy for storage purposes and to ensure there were no squatters, held a secret that would only come to light years later. Dental records eventually identified the remains found in the chimney as those of Joshua Maddox. The cabin's proximity to Joshua's previous home, just a mile away, added another layer of poignancy to the discovery. In a haunting revelation, Google Maps street images from 2012 captured the area around the cabin, unbeknownst to passers-by that Joshua's remains were concealed just beyond the chimney wall at that time. The autopsy results indicated that Joshua had no drugs in his system and showed no signs of physical trauma, such as broken bones, bullet, or knife wounds. This led authorities to conclude that Joshua's death was accidental, likely caused by a fall down the chimney. It was also determined that his death was not immediate, with hypothermia being a probable cause. The case of Joshua Maddox initially appeared to be a sad accident. It seemed that Joshua, being adventurous, climbed onto the roof of the cabin, entered the chimney, and tragically slipped and died. However, Chuck Murphy, the cabin's owner, has raised doubts about this theory. He mentioned that he had previously installed rebar at the top of the chimney to block animals, casting uncertainty on the accidental fall explanation. Chuck Murphy clarified that the rebar installation at the chimney top was done just a few years before Joshua went missing. Asserting the impossibility of Joshua entering the chimney, he stated, "There's no way that guy crawled inside that chimney with that steel webbing. He didn't come down that chimney." With Chuck Murphy's extensive experience in construction, his insights on the cabin's chimney are crucial. He confidently stated that Joshua couldn't have entered the chimney through the steel rebar from outside, suggesting an entry from inside the cabin was more likely. The primary theory of Joshua's death is compressive asphyxia, where one's legs above the chest in a tight space can prevent breathing. However, Murphy observed Joshua's legs were positioned downwards, in a fetal position, making this cause of death less likely, as it would have required entry head first. Adding to the mystery, Joshua's body was found wearing only a thermal shirt, with his other clothes neatly folded inside the fireplace room. This detail implies Joshua was inside the cabin at some point. Murphy also noted a breakfast bar had been moved from the kitchen wall to near the fireplace, possibly to hide or block the body. Despite the intriguing new details and inconsistencies, the case of Joshua Maddox was ultimately left closed with the same conclusion as before. His death was deemed accidental. This verdict suggests a scenario where Joshua independently entered the cabin, removed all his clothes except for his shirt, neatly folded them in the room, then ventured outside wearing only the shirt. He would have had to climb onto the roof and descend headfirst into the chimney, where he tragically became trapped. This sequence of events, while plausible to the authorities, leaves many questions unanswered and continues to puzzle those who have followed the case. Considering the unusual circumstances of Joshua Maddox's death, two alternative theories emerge. The first is that Joshua, while inside the cabin, chose to strip down to just his shirt and then voluntarily climbed into the fireplace and up into the chimney. This scenario, however, raises the question of why he would do such a thing, seeming unlikely and irrational. The second and more ominous possibility is that Joshua was murdered and his body was subsequently placed in the chimney. In the investigation, several phone calls to the police and coroner's office suggested leads on potential suspects in Joshua Maddox's case. One particularly intriguing tip involved a claim that someone overheard the suspect saying, "I put Josh in a hole." This lead was initially ignored, but later gained attention when a source shared their account on Reddit. The Reddit user mentioned a high school acquaintance, Andy, a skinny, dorky hippie who played guitar. They weren't close friends, but the user's friend, Josh, started hanging out with Andy before Joshua Maddox went missing. Andy had reportedly said to another friend, "Yeah, me and Josh have been spending a lot of time together. We're planning a trip to New Mexico." This statement, made in the context of Joshua's disappearance, sparked suspicion and suggested a possible connection that warranted further investigation. Andrew Richard Newman, known in the Woodland Park area of Colorado, emerges as a person of interest in Joshua Maddox's case. A fellow student at Woodland Park High School and sharing a similar passion for music, Andrew and Joshua were likely acquainted, possibly even friends. Although Joshua never went to New Mexico with Andrew, records show that Andrew did indeed travel there in 2009. In May of that year, while in New Mexico, Andrew met James Aledo, a caretaker, in a bar. James, known for his kind nature, allowed Andrew to stay at his apartment with him and the disabled individual he cared for. Following a shower one evening, James discovered a horrifying scene. His disabled friend had been fatally stabbed in his wheelchair, and Andrew Newman was nowhere to be found. In a separate incident in June 2009 in Texas, Andrew was detained by the police for trespassing on private property without the homeowner's permission. These incidents, involving violence and unlawful entry, add a layer of complexity to Andrew's profile and raise questions about his potential involvement or connection to Joshua Maddox's mysterious disappearance and death. For the next few years, Andrew's whereabouts were mostly unaccounted for, likely due to time spent in prison. His criminal record expanded in 2012 in Utah with 7 charges, including assaulting a police officer. In 2015, he was again arrested in Jacksonville, Florida for trespassing, followed by arrests in February 2018 for burglary and trespassing. December 2018 saw him in Brazos County, Texas, charged with assaulting 3 police officers, burglary of an unoccupied structure in Florida, and fleeing the state as a fugitive. As of the making of this video, Andrew remains incarcerated in Brazos County, Texas. In March 2019, Andrew Newman made headlines again for assaulting a detentions officer while in prison. Turning our focus back to the Joshua Maddox case, let's explore a theory based on the events and evidence presented. On May 8, 2008, Joshua left his house for a walk, indicating to his sister his intention to return. It's plausible that later that day, Joshua, either by force or of his own accord, entered the cabin on Meadowlark Lane. Once inside, it's theorized that Joshua became the victim of murder. The autopsy revealed no bullet or knife wounds and no marks on the skin, but asphyxiation, such as strangulation, could not be ruled out. Joshua's lack of clothing suggests the possibility of sexual activity, either consensual or forced. The motive behind the murder remains unclear. Post-murder, Joshua's body was likely moved into the chimney through the fireplace. The breakfast bar, torn off the kitchen wall, was placed in front of the fireplace, possibly to mask the smell and prevent discovery of the body in the chimney. This theory gains further weight considering Joshua's disappearance in 2008, around the time he reportedly started associating with Andrew Newman. Andrew Newman's subsequent actions, including a series of charges ranging from trespassing and assault to possible involvement in murder, paint a picture of a troubled individual. This background makes it conceivable, though not conclusively proven, that he might have been involved in a similar incident back in 2008. The challenge in connecting Newman to Joshua Maddox's disappearance lies in Newman's transient lifestyle, making it difficult for police to ascertain his whereabouts at the time Joshua went missing. Further complicating matters, the crime scene wasn't discovered until 7 years later and was quickly demolished following the discovery of Joshua's body, which was then cremated. These factors significantly diminish the likelihood of ever uncovering the full truth behind Joshua's fate. While there are theories suggesting a connection between Newman and Joshua, they lack solid evidence. As a result, the mystery surrounding Joshua Maddox's tragic end remains unresolved. The case for now stands closed, with the hope that new information might someday surface to provide clarity. Until then, Joshua's story remains an unsolved enigma.